Revealed here are the V1, the V2, and the Fritz X, weapons that changed the face of warfare forever.
The V1 flying bomb, the world's first operational cruise missile. A crude yet terrifying invention, powered by a pulse jet that produced its signature buzzing sound, earning it the nickname Buzz Bomb. Launched from ramps in occupied Europe, it flew straight toward its target using a simple autopilot system. Once the internal counter reached zero, the control surfaces cut out and the missile plunged toward the ground. Its range of around 250 kilometers allowed Germany to strike London, Antwerp, and other Allied cities with ease. But despite its simplicity, the V1 carried an 850-kilogram warhead, enough to level entire blocks. Allied fighters and anti-aircraft guns desperately tried to intercept them, but their speed of 640 kilometers per hour made them difficult targets in 1944. Thousands were launched, causing widespread destruction and panic. The V1 marked the dawn of modern cruise missile warfare, cheap, mass-produced, and terrifyingly effective. The V2 rocket, humanity's first long-range ballistic missile and the first man-made object to reach the edge of space. Unlike the slow, noisy V1, the V2 struck silently. No warning, no buzzing engine, no time to take cover. It climbed vertically on a liquid-fuel rocket engine, arced through the stratosphere, and descended faster than the speed of sound. By the time you heard it coming, it had already detonated. Its technological leap was immense: gyroscopic guidance, turbopump engines, and aerodynamic fins that stabilized it in flight. Engineers led by Wernher von Braun pushed rocket science decades ahead, knowledge that later shaped Cold War missiles and even the Saturn V moon rocket. Used mainly against London and Antwerp in 1944-45, each V2 carried a 1-ton warhead. Not even anti-aircraft guns or fighters could touch it. It was unstoppable, ushering in a frightening new era of warfare. The Fritz X was the world's first precision-guided anti-ship missile and the first missile to ever sink a moving warship in combat. Dropped from high altitude, it didn't simply fall. Operators used a radio control system to guide it with incredible accuracy. Its armor-piercing design allowed it to punch through decks before detonating. In 1943, it proved its power when a German bomber dropped a Fritz X onto the Italian battleship Roma, sending the massive warship to the bottom. Suddenly, no ship, battleship, cruiser, or carrier felt safe. This weapon was years ahead of its time. Modern guided bombs, anti-ship missiles, and JDAM-style glide systems all trace their roots to this design. Though limited in number and requiring skilled operators, the Fritz X demonstrated that precision weapons could change naval warfare forever. The HS-293 was Germany's early attempt at building a true guided anti-ship missile, faster, more flexible, and easier to deploy than the Fritz X. It combined a glide bomb with a small rocket booster, allowing it to fly toward enemy ships at high speed. Operators in the launching aircraft manually guided it using radio control, steering it with flares attached to the tail. Against slow or unarmored ships, the HS-293 was deadly. It sank or damaged dozens of Allied vessels throughout 1943 and 1944, forcing navies to rethink convoy defense. Even though electronic jamming eventually reduced its effectiveness, the HS-293 proved that guided standoff weapons were the future. Its design inspired modern anti-ship missiles and air-launched precision munitions used worldwide today. The Ruhrstahl X-4 was Germany's ambitious attempt to counter the massive Allied bomber formations devastating German cities. Unlike earlier guided bombs, this was a true air-to-air missile, the first practical one ever built. It used wire guidance, with two thin wires unspooling behind the missile as it flew. Pilots guided the X-4 using a small joystick, steering it visually toward a bomber. Its 20-kilogram warhead was designed to detonate with a proximity fuse, shredding aircraft with fragments. Production began in 1945, but fuel shortages and collapsing infrastructure stopped mass deployment. No X-4 was fired in combat, but its design directly influenced early Cold War AAMs in both the US and USSR. The X-4 shows how Germany tried to answer Allied air supremacy with technology far ahead of its time. The Henschel HS-117 Schmetterling, or Butterfly, was Germany's attempt to build a surface-to-air missile that could shoot down Allied bombers from the ground. Standing vertically on its launch rail, the Schmetterling used a two-stage rocket system, a booster for launch and a sustainer for mid-flight. Operators guided it by radio commands, watching the missile's bright flares as it streaked toward high-altitude bombers. In tests, it showed promise, fast, agile, and capable of reaching targets several kilometers above the ground. But it arrived too late. With Germany collapsing, production never began. Still, the Schmetterling represented a technological leap, a modernized idea of SAM systems decades before they became standard in militaries worldwide. It's a reminder of how desperate and advanced Germany's late-war air defense projects had become. Waterfall, meaning waterfall, was perhaps Germany's most advanced surface-to-air missile of WWII. Based loosely on the V-2's architecture, it shrank the huge ballistic missile into a more manageable high-speed interceptor designed to destroy Allied bombers. Unlike other German SAMs, Waterfall featured radar and radio command guidance, a revolutionary concept for the 1940s. It carried a large fragmentation warhead designed to detonate near bomber formations. Its speed and altitude performance were astonishing for the era, but production demands, liquid fuel tanks, complex wiring, and radar systems were too much for Germany's collapsing industry. Only test launches occurred, none operational. Even still, Waterfall inspired early Cold War SAM designs, including Soviet systems that later evolved into the famous SA-2. The Enzian was a strange and futuristic missile, more like a small unmanned aircraft than a traditional rocket. Inspired partly by the Me-163 rocket fighter, the Enzian was designed to climb quickly, fly toward bomber formations, and detonate a massive warhead in their path. Unlike other SAMs, the Enzian didn't rely on high-speed interception. Instead, it was meant to linger near bomber routes and use proximity fuses to blanket the sky with shrapnel. Its large warhead made it one of the most dangerous anti-bomber concepts of the war, but guidance issues, engine problems, and late-war shortages halted development. Though it never entered service, Enzian foreshadowed modern anti-air missiles with large fragmentation warheads used to counter heavy aircraft and cruise missiles. Rheintochter, named after the daughter of the Rhine from German mythology, was one of Germany's most unusual SAM designs. Built with two stages and a forest of stabilizing fins, it was intended to climb rapidly and blast bomber formations out of the sky. Early versions used a solid fuel booster and a liquid fuel second stage, creating complex manufacturing problems. Later versions switched to full solid fuel for reliability. The missile performed well in tests, but like most SAMs, it came too late. Only trial firings were ever completed. Still, its multi-stage design, aerodynamic fin structure, and guidance concepts were decades ahead. It directly influenced early post-war missile experiments conducted by both the French and the Soviets. The Kramer X4 was one of Germany's most advanced air-to-air weapons, so futuristic that it nearly feels like something out of the jet age. Instead of radar, it used a wired guidance system, meaning thin control wires unspooled behind it, while the pilot guided the missile using a small joystick. Its purpose? To allow German fighter pilots to attack Allied bombers from a distance, avoiding their heavy defensive gunfire. Developed in 1944, thousands of units were ordered, and early models were tested using FW-190 fighters as launch platforms. While it never reached full operational deployment before the war's end, the X-4 directly influenced post-war missile designs in both the United States and the Soviet Union, a wartime experiment that came remarkably close to rewriting air combat.
Das Ruhrstahl X7 Rotkäppchen, meaning Little Red Riding Hood, was one of the world's first true anti-tank guided missiles. Its design was decades ahead of its time. The X7 was compact, precise, and controlled by a wire guidance system similar to later Cold War missiles like the Milan and TOW. German infantry could launch it from shoulder rests or simple tripods. The missile then glided toward its target while the operator steered it using a small joystick, watching flares on the tail for alignment. Although it never saw large-scale wartime deployment, the X-7 profoundly influenced the development of modern portable anti-tank weapons. In 1945, the idea of an infantryman guiding a missile into a tank was science fiction brought to life, and the Germans were the first to do it.
The Wasserfall was Germany's attempt to create a mass-production, battlefield-ready version of the V2, scaled down and optimized for anti-aircraft defense. Designed to attack Allied bomber formations at altitudes conventional flak could not reach, the Wasserfall carried a massive fragmentation warhead. Its guidance, either radio, infrared, or radar command, was cutting-edge. Engineers hoped to launch waves of these missiles to shield German cities from devastating air raids. By 1945, several prototypes had flown successfully, demonstrating impressive performance. But like many late-war German wonder weapons, the Wasserfall came too late and in too few numbers to alter the air war. Had it entered mass service, it would have been the world's first operational SAM system. The HS-293F was the last major evolution of the Henschel-guided bomb line, a refined glide bomb capable of attacking heavily defended ships from long range. Its F model featured optimized aerodynamics and improved stability, allowing pilots to guide it with greater precision using a radio-controlled joystick. Late-war tests showed the F model could dive at steep angles or glide low over the sea, slipping under radar detection. Although few were produced before Germany's collapse, the design influenced Cold War anti-ship weapons across Europe. The HS-293F stands as the final chapter in Germany's pioneering remote-guided bomb program, one that changed naval warfare forever.